development initiative. My professional journey is spanning over 5 years and let me implement educational projects that empower and uplift communities. Guided by a vision of equitable cyber education, I collaborate and drive initiatives that foster knowledge, skills, and positive changes. With this in view, I represent civil society and bring my weight to the field to create a better future of the internet, just like you all. So thank you for being here with us and attending this webinar, and are going to share noteworthy information and hear all the thoughtful initiatives and also foster collaborative conversation. During the discussion, we will provide up-to-date insights, and we will highlight also the latest trends and challenges existing in DNS abuse. So generally, we aim to build a collective understanding of the problem and identify practical collaborative approaches to mitigate the root problem when we're talking, of course, about DNS abuse. With that in mind, we will share with you recent data and case studies, and we'll try to provide effective strategies to ensure everyone stays informed about the issue and solution as well. Moving forward, I wish to get you know to the first presenter, Mr. Shah Zahidur Rahman. He's an emerging technology specialist and internet governance specialist, of course, whose professionalism spanning more than 15 years. As a matter of fact, he has been collaborating with stakeholders from both private sector, government, and non-profit organizations as well. On his current role, Mr. Shah is a Chief Digital and Innovation Officer of a startup company which is based in Bangladesh. So furthermore, I would like to add that he's an ICANN member from at-large advisory committee. So we are happy that you're here with us, Mr. Shah, and hope that you will provide very interesting, thoughtful presentation. For us, Shah is going to overview the latest trends, challenges, and statistics related to DNS abuse. So thanks one more time, Mr. Shah, for being with us. Here, you can start your speech. We are all ears.
Thank you. I think I'm audible. Yes.
Yes, you are.
Thank you, Noriko, and for your brief introduction to me. And good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are. It is my pleasure to have that opportunities to present some of my studies and thoughts with you. Actually, we have planned this program like the discussions is mostly on some sorts of my statistics and the current trend. So the way the DNS is now we are facing in that practical world, it is really difficult to identify and then fix the challenges to rectify on these issues, especially for the country like in developing and also some other countries in Asia. So we're focusing on that. I have tried to figure out some of data and some of the little trends of that DNS that maybe will help to understand that, bring this discussion to the tables in a collaborative solutions. So no more further delay. I am going to present the next slides. Okay, as we are starting our discussions, just we maybe know all that what is the DNS abuse actually. So when it comes to the conversation of that DNS abuse. It's a broad sections, but most of that 5 categories that we are mainly discussing on intersect with the DNS are malware, botnet, phishing, farming, and spam, where spam serves as a delivery mechanism for those other form of DNS abuse. When we all discuss about the DNS abuse and other things, there is some of the security challenges that need to also know some things a little bit. Just for this presentation, I'm giving just abbreviation of this, are including Daniel DDoS attack and DDoS attacks, and also the some other threats that like are cache poisoning, protocol level attacks, and explosion of implementation vulnerabilities are subject to considers on that DNS threats. Next, I just tried to figure out some summaries on that top categories of the DNS from this last 2 years of some studies. I tried to figure out some short summaries that I sharing with you here. If you look at the different categories of DNS abuse, I found that phishing is 46% and spam is 44%, and are the most relevant with malware is 8%. That is picking up the third place. So remind me the more stable and these last 2 consecutive years. As I said that these are the most categories in of recent trend. So this is not the exact science how we figure, but its efforts being put identified of the leading categories than any others. There could be questions of so how we could measure that DNS, and that I kept one of my slides in last of that these presentations. So how could analyze the DNS for the register, registry, or any other operators, and one standard format that I will share you in that last slides. So another important fact is that botnet and malware are becoming more and more interchangeable. Now the traffic is so increasingly and enormously operating in the system in infrastructures. It is really defined to identify this kind of phishings and botnet malware. These are the some way connected one botnet to another, but different source categories and track this differently. The lastly is about farming, which is mentioned in the DNS abuse as category, as I mentioned in the above, is hardly ever attacked by source anywhere. It is a two-factor attack that starts with malware being installed on a client computer. That is, attack user is sent to the phishing sites marked by the malware. So from this study, I summarize the phishing and spam are the most relevant categories of the abuse nowadays. And even it is maybe last 2 years, this trend of abuse is observed. As we are talking about the DNS abuse, so I think that some abuse informations on the top level domains could be also fruitful for this audience. So I found this some of that research on or overviewing of the top level domains. There are currently at least one report of DNS abuse for 928 different TLDs, which is that there is roughly about 1,500 domain name in the root zone, and that 16 TLDs are due to their nature not available for registrations. So it is safely to say majority of the top level domains name has the DNS abuse occurring in them right now. And the amount of DNS abuse, which is some tied popularity of TLDs, as well as the availability of that pricing, measure, and reputations of the mitigation reports. But all these become irrelevant when looking into DNS abuse to comprise domain, where TLDs are more or less interesting for malicious actors. So this is one of the important things that we need to consider, that at least one DNS report is happening for 928 different TLDs. This is the way I'm here giving that emphasis, so we could realize that how it is happening and what are the impact of the TLDs levels. So in summarize, I said here in we can mitigate these challenges, but bad actors goes and very frequently. So, and also continue the vigilance, sharing data and expertise, we can figure out more specific sorts of abuse. So DNS abuse is really a problem that all the internet providers and service provider and other facing. At least we can do things ourselves. The problem that we are currently situation we are observing. Now, I thought that for the consideration of our uh, objectives, the landscape of this DNS, I've identified four of the things that we need to take. I will not go in brief, but just sharing this, the importance of the DNS security, the recent trends, vulnerabilities of the consequence, and how we can identify the common attacks, and then improvements methods for improving our DNS securities. The next slide, I'm trying to again figure out some of my studies from that DNS site threat reports. It is found that 87% of organizations suffer DNS attacks, and increasing that 8% from the last previous years. Many of the attacks are very conspicuous that may damage very destructively, which is very alarming for the users and also for the service providers. Also, I seen that 76% of DNS attacks cause application downtimes. That means the average attack took over 5 in that my studies, and it takes 5.5 hours to mitigate that attack solutions. Recently, I also seen observed that cause two types of changes to the DNS existing landscapes. These are newly discovered DNS vulnerabilities and changing internet browsing habits stemming from the COVID pandemic. So these are the most things I observed also. To respond of these new threats and defense against organization needs to DNS security, high priority security we need to introduce, and also in general and implementation multi-layer approach that could be extended by the DNS sec. So here another is I found that of cyber threats exploits abuse DNS. 44% of the organization identifies DNS-based attacks as one of the top security challenges. These are some sorts of statistics we have in my hand that I shown in from different sources. Now I just tried to have a recently develop DNS related vulnerabilities that commonly happenings, how it is passing like a very in conscious mind. Maybe we forget the password and it is going through that cache poisonous attacks and other things. And also data exposing is managed on the DNS. And further than the TSU names of data attacks against the DNS servers. Here I seen some of the common attack that involves with the DNS infrastructures. I have worked in that also in internet organizations and also in some of our DNS company previous. So here I seen these are the four categories of a DNS attack. One of them is most important: DNS spoofing, DNS DDoS amplification, and tunneling. All this I have given here a brief, but I think we do not have much time on go details on this, but these are the four priorities that is most important. Here is I given my summaries of that impact of DNS attacks significantly vary within the DNS attacks landscape. That means consequences vary as well, regardless of the circumstances, and it's said to say that said consequences are often severe. Some of attacks, then mitigation option include, we suggest for the registry or the operators, that is first, we need to be cautious on the implementation of DNS6 if we want to make that network or our DNS is to make secure. And also for the redundant infrastructures, for the most of the cases, maybe for small organizations, they might have that legacy of the redundancy networks, but it is also another options they need to think. I guess for the corporate or other big organizations, they have that redundant structure that may secure their DNS abuse. Another is also the DNS firewall. It is now a general practice for that operator and other things to use at least the firewall that makes that data secure, not only in the incoming traffic, but outgoing and other sorts of things. And encrypted DNS, which is the most suggested things that is now being introduced of many of the service providers. So as I mentioned in the above, I have shown some of the data and things, what are how they have got. So here is one of the common DNS abuse measurements practice or the process that introduced in that that was name of previously DNS abuse institutions. This process is similar like that big data or some analysis of data. Here actually all the things happens within the data taken from the source and then formulate it in a predictable and interpreted data so that we can identify what sorts of abuse are identified. So that is first for this process is to focus on what kind of abuse you looking for to identify it, and then from the input data you can process, analyze, and present that data and interpret to the target audience. Mostly the research institutions are following these sorts of that process. Here, this is an open things that the last of the domain abuse activity report I found. That is this is the DAR system that provide data related to the domain names and security connections with the generic top-level domains. Here in the table 1, I tried to show that these trends on the last 24 of the collected zone data from 1105 GTL. That table is summarized here, the columns and row, and the breakdowns of this individual security sets is here showing in that graphics. You see the third-party reputation field that I have mentioned is that need to be trusted against this process, not the individual do, but on the collaboration of other organizations and the trusted parties, those who are mostly renowned and other things. They collected and sorts of these data, and then they produce these sorts of report every monthly. So this kind of data here associated with the last 4 kinds of security threats: phishings, malware, distributions, both command controls, and spams. That is the visible breakdown. Security here is in that graph, that in that figures is showing here. So that is just to give you a brief introductions about from my side. So what are the DNS, what could be the possible impact, how we measure the DNS, and the things that we need to take from our side to resolve the problem of the DNS abuse. I want to thank you here for me listenings, and I would be happy if we have further in the conversation we can share more details. Thank you, Neil. We'll get back to you.
Thank you very much, Shah, for your worthy thoughts and notes. It was very interesting from you to hear all these very interesting aspects regarding to DNS abuse. As for the audience, in case of having questions, in order to conduct the process more conveniently, I would like to ask you to write down the questions in the chat box of the meeting so that we can timely handle them appropriately. So turning your attention to our next speaker, we can smoothly move on to the following presenter. Let's welcome Mariam. He's the assistant to the Executive Council to the Internet Society Georgia. Mariam has been gaining knowledge on Internet law-related issues at the University of Georgia. Besides working in one of the most advanced legal firms in Georgia, she has been involved in Internet governance since 2019 and has been part of various Internet governance-related projects, along with international law mediation tournaments and moot court competition. With this in view, I would like to give the mic to her for the presentation on field emerging technologies and practices. So the floor is yours, Mariam, please.
Thank you, Nelly, for presenting me. I will now share my screen. Today I will be covering the following topic, which is new threats and innovative solutions to combat DNS abuse, emerging technologies and practices. As you can see on this slide, I will have an executive summary of 2023, and I would like to present you some interesting reports about DNS attacks. First of all, the domain name system, the DNS, is a fundamental to everything that we do online. So in the age of digital transformation, hackers are finding new ways in order to successfully breach organizations' data. So those successful attacks, as you see on the slide, are more common. And year after year, the impact and the cost of these DNS attacks are continuing to rise, which causes a severe damage to the companies and organizations. Based on the survey of IDC, which you can see here, which is the survey of 2023, it shows that 90% of organizations suffered DNS attacks, which was costing them $1.1 million each attack. So as a result, organizations need to prioritize DNS security as part of their cybersecurity strategy. As you can see here, there are top DNS-based attacks comparing 2023 to 2022. And the expansion of the threat landscape and the increasing sophistication of those cyber attacks means that organizations need greater visibility and to control over their network activity. Here I would like to briefly touch also 2022 and 21 executive summary and make it more clear to compare those with 2023. So here, as we see, DNS has been the Achilles heel of the network since its creation, which makes it a target of choice for cyber criminals to exploit their weaknesses and gain access to the network and exfiltrate data. So this is why it is vital for the organizations to deploy a proper DNS security solutions to mitigate those risks. Additionally, here I would like to pay attention to this IDC report as well, comparing 2022 to 21. It is noteworthy that those are the years when we used to work from home with a hybrid regime because of the COVID-19, so which has created challenges to the organizations and IT team as well. With the disappearance of the perimeter, both attack surface and cloud usage has increased considerably. And the survey results show that the number and size of attacks are increasing, but they are not as high as they were in 2023. So it is interesting to see then the report of 2024, which I hope to see in the end of the year. So on the next slide, as we see, a DNS-based cyber attacks can have a significant impact in both short and in long terms as well. So speaking about the short times, an organization may experience downtime or loss of productivity as a result of systems being taken offline, or employees being unable to access their important data or applications, which lead to course, revenue loss, missed deadlines, reputational damage, and regulatory fines. Speaking about the long-term impacts, organization, it can include damage to brand reputation, to loss of customers, and decreased market share. And additionally, a successful attack can result into a theft of sensitive data, such as intellectual property, financial information, healthcare information, etc. And we can lead to not only but financial loss and reputational damage, but to legal liabilities. So here I would like you to pay the attention that the DNS attacks are covered with all spheres and directions, such as financial services, retail, telecoms and media, healthcare, education, government, utilities, manufacturing, transportation, and business services as well. Moving on to the next slide. It's an interesting question, is why are the threats still happening and rising? So the main point, one of the reasons I would say, is that DNS was not designed for security. So that's an interesting fact, because the DNS, which was designed in 1980s, when internet access was restricted to internet government agencies, scientists, and military, the system's early architects were concerned about reliability and functionality about DNS, but not security. So as a result, DNS servers have always been vulnerable to broad spectrum of attack. A number of factors explain these increased attacks in organizations. Leads that organizations need to plan to address all of them. And recent years, I would like to add, that have caused two changes to the existing DNS landscape, which is a newly discovered DNS attacks, and another one is COVID-19 challenges. So to respond to these new threats and defend against existing ones, organizations need to give DNS security higher priority in general, and also implement a multi-layered approach that's beyond. So moving on to the next slide, I would like to touch a brief overview of new threats. Let's take, for example, a forgotten password cache poisoning attacks, which links are common in web applications, but a vulnerability discovered in July 2021, which made them vulnerable to DNS cache poisoning attacks. So security researchers discovered that performing cache poisoning attacks on 146 vulnerable web applications, they could redirect password reset emails to attacker-controlled services, and this enabled them to click on the link and reset the user's password, providing legitimate access to their accounts. Let's take another one, for example, data exposure in managed DNS. A research demonstrated that bugs in certain managed DNS services could expose corporate DNS traffic containing sensitive information. So by registering a domain, for example, on Amazon Route 53 DNS service or Google Cloud DNS that had the same name as the DNS name server, the attacker could force all DNS traffic to be sent to their server, and this exposed as sensitive information. If we discuss, for example, the DNS tunneling, DNS flood, DNS hijacking, DNS tunneling is an action of moving the data from a corrupting machine out of the network by hiding data in DNS traffic. And regarding the DNS flood, the attacker uses infected hosts or bots to take down the DNS servers. And DNS hijacking occurs when an authoritative server is compromised and the threat actors gain public records. So, moving on to the next slide, the important thing is that your DNS security solution needs to protect against modern day threats. Here on the slide, there are several options. Of course, there are more, but I took some general of them, which is a security data, massive quantities of real-world security data from the threat intelligence or cyber threat alliances. And with the data from a larger and expanding intelligence sharing community, organizations are better equipped to protect themselves from attacks using DNS. Regarding analytics and machine learning, and security must be able to run analytics in line on real world security data and pair it with machine learning to identify unknown bad domains. Cloud-based protection, when you use the cloud, it allows you to DNS protections to scale infinitely and always stay up to date. So these cloud-based innovations allow defenders to develop and deploy new detection techniques instantly. No standalone point products. Disparate tools that are fully integrated weren't designed for automation, meaning security teams are forced to manually stitch together insights from multiple disparate sources before taking actions on threats. Full visibility and context for DNS traffic. Visibility into DNS traffic allows security team to identify malicious and benign traffic and trends. With context around these events, organizations are able to optimize policies and security posture. And finally, category-based actions. Different types of DNS-based threats will require different course of action. So security teams need automated responses based on DNS attacks and DNS traffic categories to enable fine-grained control over DNS traffic more quickly, which allows them to efficiently mitigate threats and reduce risk experience. Moving on, the next line is identifying an attack. So in most instances, these attacks can go undetected for a significant amount of time because they are just very deceptive. When looking for signs of DNS attacks, it is important to pay close attention to the reports coming from your end users and various organizational departments. If there is an influx of issues with your primary intranet site or external website, indicating that the site looks weird or it is completely down, it is time to take these reports very seriously. So DNS is an absolute requirement for today's internet. Unfortunately, it was never designed to security in mind, which makes it difficult attack surface to secure. But DNS can be manipulated by cache poisoning, facilitating malware injections into your host through channeling, and it can completely take down your website in a flood. So, or worse, your public DNS records might be hijacked. I chose some security best practices that I found. Of course, there are also other ones. There's a discussion regarding the best practices, but I took some few of them to discuss, which is to enable DNS SEC, which is DNS security extensions on all DNS servers. It adds layer of authentication to the DNS lookup process, verifying that DNS response has not been compromised. By ensuring the authenticity of the DNS data, the DNS SEC goes a long way in preventing DNS spoofing attacks. Operating your own DNS server might be also a choice, which means that when you run your own DNS server, it allows you to have a better control over your DNS requests and responses, thereby reducing the risk of DNS poisoning attacks. So having your own servers essentially ensures that DNS requests are not sent to compromised external DNS servers. Well, another option is regular updating of DNS software. Making a habit to keep your DNS software and operating systems updated. And with each update, software developers improve security measures and patch known vulnerabilities that attackers might have exploited. Also, another option is vigilant monitoring of DNS activity, which constant monitoring of DNS activity allows you to detect any suspicious entries in real time. So using DNS spoofing detection tools can help you to spot potential security threats before they become. So if abnormal traffic patterns or unrecognizable DNS responses are detected, it could indicate that a DNS poisoning attempt is going on. And the final best practice that I chose is to use private DNS servers. A private DNS server only allows DNS requests from recognized and trusted sources, so which minimizes an exposure to potential threats. And restricting who can make DNS requests for your server is another effective measure against DNS poisoning. This is the information that I wanted to cover in this slide. As a final note, I would like to thank you for listening, and I would like to mention that different stakeholders have legitimate arguments for and against persuasive encryption of DNS traffic. So this needs informed multi-stakeholder discussion and a recognition that users' privacy interests are currently poorly reflected in the available options. So the most appropriate choice will depend on your circumstances and risk. Thank you very much for your information. I will stop now sharing this screen.
Thank you, Mariam. There were so many interesting and engaging aspects to think about in your presentation. Moving forward now, as a policy researcher with a background in internet law, it's my pleasure to be next presenter and talk about and delve deeper into the insight of legal framework and regulatory considerations regarding to DNS abuse. Once again, in case of having questions, please write them down in chat box to keep them in order. So now, initially, it's my privilege to speak here in front of you about the critical issue of DNS abuse, because an area of growing concern as we become increasingly reliant on the internet for our daily activities. While the domain name system is a fundamental part of our daily life, internet's infrastructure, malicious actors for various forms of abuse frequently exploit this essential system. So, from my point of view, addressing DNS abuse requires a comprehensive understanding of legal frameworks and, of course, regulatory considerations as well. Before delving into the legal aspects, it's essential to define what constitutes DNS abuse. Well, DNS abuse generally includes activities such as phishing, malware distribution, botnet command, and control, as previous presenters have already mentioned. Botnet command and control, and the use of DNS infrastructure for launching distributed denial of service. So these activities exploit the DNS to perpetrate harm, disrupt services, or facilitate illegal activities, which I think pose significant risks to individuals, businesses, and the broader internet community as well. Well, the first thing before I start presenting my screen is a legal framework that's addressing DNS abuse. So I will start sharing the screen. It is. Yes. Okay. Now, several legal frameworks at national and international levels address DNS abuse, as we have already known. This international level, these frameworks aim to prevent, mitigate, and respond to abuse by establishing regulations, promote best practices, and fostering cooperation among all the stakeholders. With that in mind, at the international level, various legal instruments and agreements address cybercrime and DNS abuse as well, because both of these aspects are deeply related to each other. One of the most influential is the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime, which was established by the Council of Europe. The convention provides a comprehensive framework for combating cybercrime and including provisions related to the misuse of computer systems and networks, which further compress DNS abuse. The Budapest Convention encourages countries to harmonize their national laws and improve investigation techniques, while also increasing cooperation among nations. But the convention sets a global standard for addressing cybercrime and serves as a model for national legislation. But as said, it might sound, not all the countries are signatories of the convention. Different countries have enacted specific laws to address DNS abuse and broader cybercrime issues. For instance, in the United States, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act and also the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act provide legal grounds for prosecuting various forms of cybercrime, including those that involve DNS abuse. On the same note, in the European Union, the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, which we have I think all of us have heard about, and the network and information systems directive play crucial roles. Well, the GDPR, while primarily focused on data protection, also provides provisions that can impact how DNS data is handled, which is very important both for developing and developed countries. Well, such as the Register Accreditation Agreement also is an important and influential document when it comes to DNS abuse and its legal regulation. This document imposes obligations on domain registers to prevent and mitigate DNS abuse. Additionally, the domain name system security extensions is a technical measure we can mention when speaking about legal frameworks and some kind of laws related to DNS abuse and cybercrime. And this document is specifically designed to protect against certain types of DNS abuse by ensuring both the integrity and authenticity of DNS data. And another one is the thing that is called industry self-regulation. I think this is one of the most important and influential aspects when we are talking about DNS and its abuse. Well, beyond government regulations, the internet community has developed regulatory mechanisms to combat DNS abuse. The Internet Corporation's assigned names and numbers icon plays a pivotal role in coordinating the global DNS and ensuring its security and stability all around the world, which is very influential things to mention. ICANN's policies, such as the Register Accreditation Agreement, impose obligations on domain registers and prevent name system security extension and prevent some kind of abuses related to DNS. And I want to mention about regulatory considerations. While legal frameworks provide the foundation for addressing DNS abuse, you would definitely agree that regulatory considerations are equally influential as well. Effective regulation requires a balance of fundamental rights, fostering international cooperation, and promoting the adoption of best practices as well. As I have already mentioned while talking about DNS abuse, one of the key challenges in regulating DNS abuse and all the problems regarding this issue is balancing security measures with privacy concerns. For instance, while monitoring and analyzing DNS traffic can help identify and mitigate abuse, it can also raise significant privacy issues. Regulations like the GDPR and WHOES database, which provides information about domain name registers, has been a focal point in this debate. While WHOES data is vulnerable for identifying and responding to DNS abuse, the public availability of this information has raised privacy concern, of course. ICANN's effort to reform this process includes the implementation of the Registration Data Access Protocol, which aims to strike a great balance between access to information and privacy protection as well. When we are talking about this issue, we should also mention about fostering international cooperation. Because DNS abuse is a global issue and not a local one that can be solved only with the power of certain and specific countries. So that issue definitely requires international cooperation to effectively combat cyber crimes, often operate across borders. So differences in nation laws and enforcement capabilities is another influential aspect in this case. International legal instruments like the Budapest Convention facilitate cooperation, but more is needed, I think. Bilateral and multilateral agreements, as well as collaborations between law enforcement agencies, are also very influential, I guess. So information sharing and joint prosecute processes are the further necessities. Moreover, capacity building initiatives can help countries with limited resources to develop the necessary expertise and infrastructure to combat DNS abuse. And that's exactly the case of developing countries such as Georgia and even Bangladesh, I guess. I think the most important thing we can do is to promote best practices, because practice makes everything better. Regulatory efforts should also focus on promoting best practices among stakeholders, and I think this is very influential. This includes encouraging DNS operators, registrars, and hosting providers to implement security measures, such as DNSSEC, anti-phishing protocols, and regular security audits. So public-private partnerships can be particularly effective in this regard. For example, initiatives like the anti-phishing working groups and the messaging, malware, and mobile anti-abuse working groups as well bring together industry players, research, and law enforcement, and that will be a great idea to combat DNS abuse. When it comes to challenges and future directions, we should mention that despite the progress we have made, several challenges remain in effectively addressing DNS abuse, though legal and regulatory means as well. One of the primary challenges is the issue of jurisdiction. The internet's global nature means that DNS abuse often involves actors in multiple countries. I mean, so complicating legal proceedings and harmonizing laws, as well as improving international cooperation, are critical to overcome all these challenges. So when it comes to rapid technological change, as Mariam has already mentioned, is another influential issue to think about, because this rapid pace of technological change presents great challenge when it comes to DNS abuse. Because cybercrime criminals continually evolve their tactics and finding new ways to exploit the DNS. So legal and regulatory frameworks must be adaptable to keep that pace and all these challenges that are happening in this fast evolving technological landscape of our everyday life. So this requires ongoing dialogue between policymakers, industry experts, technologists, and all the interested parties from civil society and private sector. When I mentioned this multi-stakeholder approach to the issue, I also mean balancing interests, because balancing the interests of various stakeholders, including governments, industry players, and all the civil society members, must consider the diverse perspectives and needs of these groups to ensure that security measures don't underline on rights and freedoms. So that was everything I wanted to mention about DNS abuse. Considering that today Mr. Lado was not able to join due to his personal reasons, and his subject of speech was the most famous DNS abuse cases, I would like to also cover this issue briefly and mention one of the cases which is called Kelly House botnet. As I remember, the case is also known as Hughes. It was one of the most famous botnets used for various malicious activities, including spamming, stealing personal information, and distributing malware. So this Kelly House infecting hundreds of thousands of computers worldwide, and it was used to decentralized peer-to-peer network structure and making it particularly resilient to takedown efforts. So Kelly was used to send massive amounts of spam emails after containing malware or phishing links, and the botnet harvesting sensitive information from all around the world, such as login credentials, financial informations, infecting mentions all around the world, etc. So for the case, a coordinated effort led by the Microsoft in collaboration with law enforcement agencies like the FBI even, and Europol succeeded in disrupting the botnet. Microsoft filed even a legal complaint in the US District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia, which authorized a civil injunction to disable the domains associated with all the Kelly names. This issue of this case of Elikos is a great example of how collaborative approach can solve the problem regarding to DNS abuse, and that's not the only case. There are so many different kinds of issues and cases all around the world that harmed not only individuals personally, but also great and large-scale businesses. After further mentioning about the real world examples and solutions of DNS abuse, I would like to move forward to the end part of our webinar and ask our audience if they have anything to add, maybe their thoughts, their suggestions, questions, experiences, etc. You all are welcome. But if there is not any questions, we can ask our presenters if they want something to add further regarding any kind of issues we have previously discussed during our webinar. Okay, I guess that's...
I would like to just say a few words. As I have heard from my colleagues and as you could hear from my presentation, I think that it is important to respond to those new threats and defend against those threats. In order to do that, organizations need to give DNS security a higher priority in general and implement a multi-layered approach. And additionally, different stakeholders, as I have mentioned it in the end, I will just maybe repeat it once more, have legitimate arguments for and against encryption of DNS traffic, and it needs an informed multi-stakeholder discussion and recognition that users' privacy interests are important and pay more attention to DNS, as we could see from the research from 2021 to 23. The DNS attacks are only unfortunately increasing, causing more financial damage to organizations.
I definitely agree with you, Mariam. That was a great point to mention. I also think that DNS abuse is a multi-faced issue that requires a comprehensive approach that should involve legal frameworks, like regulatory considerations and international cooperation mainly. So while significant progress has been made, ongoing efforts are definitely needed to address the evolving threat landscape regarding to DNS abuse. So Mr. Shah raised a great issue. I would like to ask audience now if you're able to turn the cam so we can take a group photo. That will be all. I would like to thank you for your attention, for your attendance. Hope you have enjoyed our webinar. Thank you so much. Now we can take a group photo and then we won't take your time anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. The photo has been taken. I'll share it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.